Hey guys, Chris the Lazy Geek here and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to test out DeepSNR, which is an AI-based noise reduction tool for astrophotography that happens to be free, although it does require PixInsight to run. And we'll be comparing it with other AI-based tools such as Noise Exterminator, which is available for PixInsight and Photoshop, but costs around $60 US, and also Graxper Denoise, which is available as a standalone tool or as a process in PixInsight, and Graxper Denoise is free. That said, in recent months and weeks, I keep hearing about DeepSNR and how amazing it is, including better than Noise Exterminator, so I was really itching to test it, and boy has it been a roller coaster of emotions, because I went from this is terrible to this is awesome to it's kind of deceiving. And we'll go into all of the details in this video, so make sure you watch till the end because it's quite interesting, the results that we can get, that on the surface, once you know how to use it, look absolutely amazing. I'll be publishing this video with a resolution of 1440p, by the way, so if it's available to you, make sure to use the highest resolution available because we'll be comparing very small details and the YouTube compression could make this a bit harder to see. So remember to do that. And now that you are on the highest resolution, let's get to it. So first things first, of course, if you want to use DeepSNR, you need to have PixInsight installed, and you need to install DeepSNR, which is a bit more complex than a standard PixInsight script. For instance, you need to go to this page. I'll put the link down in the description. You can go to Downloads, and here you want to download the version that makes sense for your install. In theory, you should be on the latest PixInsight version, and you can choose the download that if you have StarNet installed or if you don't have StarNet installed. And so you click on one of those two to just download the zip file. Once you're done, you can unzip the file and you should be able to see this kind of stuff. If you chose the one with I don't have StarNet installed, you'll have also another file called tensorflow.dll. So anyway, you have those files. There's a README file that also tells you what to do. Basically, what you want to do is to go to the C Program Files PixInsight bin folder, or wherever you have installed PixInsight, and then you want to grab those files and drop them inside that bin folder. And for me, it's already done, so I'm just going to skip them, but for you, you would want to, it would not ask you to replace the files. If it does ask you, it might ask you for tensorflow.dll. If it's already existing, you probably don't need to override it, so you could try with skip these files or skip this file for now, but it really depends on what your installation is. Once you have put in the files, which you need to do with PixInsight closed, by the way, you cannot have PixInsight open while you're doing that. You want to next open up PixInsight, go to Process, Modules, Install Modules, and then when you click Search, for me it's not going to find anything because it's already installed, but it should tell you that it has found a module, which will be visible in this list. It's going to say DeepSNR, and you'll have the ability to click Install here. And that's how you install DeepSNR. It's a bit more involved than other scripts, but it's not that bad either. Now that we have DeepSNR installed, we can test it. And at first, I did my test on this kind of data, which is my data on M27 that I used in a recent video, which was comparing a monochrome camera to a color camera. It's a lot of fun video. I'll put the link up above if you're interested. But yeah, I used that. And as usual, I stacked my image as usual with some 2x drizzling. And so when I was stacking, I went to the post-calibration tab here, selected my images, and then I made sure to have like a drizzle configuration of scale of 2, a drop shrink of 0.9. The function doesn't change that much, but I'm told that varchep beta is equal to 1.5 works well. Square honestly works perfectly fine as well. But those are the settings that I've been using for drizzling. Now, that seems unrelated to DeepSNR. Trust me, it is related. We'll see why later in the video. By the way, another thing that I do when I do that is that instead of using the default VNG, the Bayer method, I use bilinear because apparently bilinear works better with such drizzling. You can even drizzle just one time with a scale of 1 and bilinear here to get a better debayering of your color images than otherwise. But that's going besides the topic. This is how I have stacked this image. So what we see here is a 2 times drizzled image of M27. And so I'm used to like working with the 2 times drizzled images because it lets me keep the details, even though I'm kind of like sacrificing some signal to noise ratio, but it is what it is. And here we have on the top left, the original image. The top right is the image processed with DeepSNR using the slider level in DeepSNR, because if I open up DeepSNR, you can see it looks like this. You basically have one parameter, which is the strength slider, and then you just tell DeepSNR whether you are using linear data or stretched data. And for me, it's always linear data in this case. Then you can just apply it on the image. And for me, most of the time, the strength was at 0.8 because I found that worked the best, although my initial tests were not very successful. We'll see in a moment. And then on the bottom left, we have the result with noise exterminator with my usual setting for noise exterminator, which is 0.6 noise reduction. And then Graxpert with my usual setting of a noise reduction level of 0.75. So let's go and look at the details. And I like looking at the details in like low signal to noise ratio areas. So like this area, for instance, is a good area to check. And we can look at how it looks like on all of the images. And at first glance, like that, when testing this, I saw that DeepSNR wasn't doing anywhere close of a good job compared to Noise Exterminator on the bottom left, or Graxpert on the bottom right, with, if we zoom even a little bit more, let's go to this zoom level, then we have like quite flat backgrounds in both Graxpert and Noise Exterminator, although Noise Exterminator, just like I showed in a previous video where I compared it to Graxpert, does seem to have the advantage in both background softness and keeping the details. But when you look at DeepSNR, it's honestly a debacle. It's horrible because I'll zoom in just for DeepSNR. We can see there's this mottling, there's this grain that is insanely bad on the whole image. And it's everywhere. It's in the background as well. Look at that. That is horrendous. And we can compare the background as well. You can see both Graxpert and Noise Exterminator did a very nice job on the background compared to the original image. And then there's DeepSNR just plundering around with that horrendous noise that it seems to have single-handedly introduced into the image. So is it a noise adder? But I'll get to what that is a bit later. I want to show you a couple of more examples first. And there's this one, which is basically the heart of the Heart Nebula. Again, the original is top left, DeepSNR is top right, bottom left is Noise Exterminator, bottom right is Graxpert. And if I zoom in, then we see the same thing again. Both Noise Exterminator and Graxpert do a great job. I think Noise Exterminator is better at keeping the fine details and contrast, while DeepSNR has this weird grain going on. And even if we go to like the higher signal to noise ratio areas like here, there, it's still horrendous with that grain that was introduced for no reason that I can tell. And again, both Noise Exterminator and Graxpert do a better job, in my opinion. And now let's look at a galaxy, right? So we're not just narrowband stuff. Galaxy, so both galaxy in this case. And again, it's drizzled by a factor of 2 with the drop shrink of 0.9, the usual parameters. And let's look maybe at this area of the galaxy with DeepSNR. And again, we see a striking advantage for Noise Exterminator Graxpert compared to DeepSNR, which seems to have, again, added that crazy mottle or noise all over the place, including if we go into the background. So obviously I was confused. I was being told that DeepSNR is like the best thing ever, and it's free and it's amazing and it works better than Noise Exterminator. And then my initial tests there show that it is garbage. I mean, not good at all. But there was another image. And this is the Pleiades Nebula that I took like 3 years ago, 2 years ago, something like that. And as far as I remember, this data is not drizzled. And If we go into this area, for example, of the nebula with this kind of detail, let's look at everything there. Now, here we can see that in terms of noise reduction, Noise Exterminator and GRAXPERT, they work great. And then I look at DeepSNR, and there's some of that mottling that is left. You can see it's kind of like mottled. There's this noise that has been introduced into the image. The stars, also the core has been kind of murdered with, like, it's very visible here. It's a horrible core, so we would need to do some masking, that kind of stuff. But going back to this specific area here, we have less noise than the original image by far, while maintaining a lot of details, probably maintaining even more details than Noise Exterminator. We can even blink between the two images. This is DeepSNR, this is Noise Exterminator. DeepSNR, Noise Exterminator, DeepSNR. So again, DeepSNR has this mottling, especially here in the background. It becomes very visible. But at the same time, it has, again, I'm going to switch to Noise Exterminator, more detail in this area. And that's where I started to think I'm doing something wrong. This is not drizzled and it's performing better. And then as I was doing a live stream the other day, I'll put the link to that live stream up above or down below if you're interested, but I was doing this live stream capturing some data from a remote setup from one of my subscribers in Chile. And I mentioned offhand that I had tried DeepSNR and it just did not work for me. And one of my channel members, Vixari, actually came by and said, like, no, it's best used on color images, of course, because it only supports color images, but that you have done one-time drizzle, not two-times drizzle, one-time drizzle with a drop shrink of around 0.8 and using the var shape 1.5 beta, as I showed earlier in the video. And now I'm like, when I was first reading that, I'm like, but my data is drizzled. I don't see what the problem is. So I decided to do a further test, which was, instead of relying on my drizzled image, I could go ahead and resample it, because I like drizzling by a factor of 2. It's super important to me. So I wanted to just go and go to integer resample, and then resample by my factor of 2 here to downsample back to the original resolution of my sensor. And we can validate that. It's now downsampled. The stars are a little blockier. We have a little better signal-to-noise ratio to start with. And then based on this image, I ran DeepSNR, Noise Exterminator, GRAXPERT again to see what was going to happen. And let's have a look at the results. Before we do that, don't forget to like this video if you want to help this channel out. You can also subscribe to the channel if you're new, in which case, welcome. And don't forget to turn on those notifications. And let me know down in the comments, how well do you think DeepSNR will perform on my resampled images? By the way, if you want to help the channel out at no cost to you and you're planning on buying any equipment from Agena or Amazon or High Point Scientific or First Light Optics, astroshop.eu, etc., if you do so after clicking the links that I have down in the description, you will help me out, again, at no cost to you. It's much appreciated. And if you want to help more directly, you can become a Patreon supporter of the channel. I have the link to Patreon down in the description. Some of my Patreon ranks, by the way, have access to my videos early and without ads. Or you can also join my channel as a member using the join button next to that subscribe button. Okay, with that out of the way, let's go back to checking how well DeepSNR performed on resampled data, shrunk data back to original size. So let's first look at M27 again. Top left, we have the original image. Top right, we have DeepSNR. Bottom left, Noise Exterminator. Bottom right, GRAXPERT, the usual stuff, right? Except that this time, DeepSNR seems to be performing really, really well. Look at how smooth everything is. The background is so smooth. Let's compare it actually with Noise Exterminator. And we're going to switch between the two. This is Noise Exterminator. This is DeepSNR. Noise Exterminator, DeepSNR. Noise Exterminator, DeepSNR. And look, it's amazing just comparing the two. This is DeepSNR. It looks like the background is far smoother, and at the same time, let's pay attention to this area here. If I switch from DeepSNR, which we have right now, to Noise Exterminator, back to DeepSNR, back to Noise Exterminator, we can see that Noise Exterminator seems to have killed details that DeepSNR was able to keep while performing a better job at noise reduction. And when I saw that, that's where I felt it. That's where I finally was convinced, okay, DeepSNR is where it's at. And let's look again. Noise Exterminator is this, DeepSNR is that. Noise Exterminator, DeepSNR. It's like almost night and day, as if I didn't even have the same data. Absolutely amazing. But don't worry, there's a but, and it will come in a moment, so stay tuned. And we can see almost the same thing on other stuff with the Heart Nebula again, so we can go towards the center. DeepSNR is the one on the top right. And then again, we see the same thing. DeepSNR is super smooth, well noise reduced. There's no more of that weird mottling / grain that we had before. It's like it took the noise and just removed it. Whereas Noise Exterminator and Graxpert, they did their best, but they're simply not at the same level. Let's again do a shift between the two. This is Noise Exterminator, DeepSNR, Noise Exterminator, DeepSNR. And the difference in like the level of noise reduction is striking. And it does feel like DeepSNR has more detail available than Noise Exterminator. Absolutely incredible. And then lastly, let's have a look at the resampled, again, Bode Nebula, Bode Galaxy. And we can see the same thing again. This time, DeepSNR does not have any of that weird mottling. And if we zoom into the relatively the same area as before, and we look at Noise Exterminator and Graxpert as well, DeepSNR performs better. The background is smoother, while DeepSNR has kept all of the same details and perhaps even more. It's absolutely incredible. Again, let's go back and forth between DeepSNR, which is what we're looking at right now, and Noise Exterminator. DeepSNR, Noise Exterminator. It's DeepSNR, on the face of it, just appears to be performing better. And on those lanes, right now this is DeepSNR, Noise Exterminator. DeepSNR, Noise Exterminator. And I don't know if it's super visible on YouTube, but DeepSNR, which is what we're looking at right now, somehow managed to smooth out the background even more than Noise Exterminator while keeping more detail and contrast in those dust lanes. Absolutely incredible. But yeah, that wasn't the end of it. Because let's keep on this galaxy here. And instead of comparing to Noise Exterminator, which is nice, let's compare to the original image. And this is actually the image where I realized that there was something slightly weird going on. This is the original image. Now let's look at DeepSNR. And pay attention to this area here. Original image, DeepSNR. Original image, DeepSNR. And it was a bit shocking to me that now those 4 blobs there with DeepSNR, they look like they're stars. Whereas if I look at the original image, I don't think they're stars. I think they're kind of just part of the galaxy and of the little kernels or clusters within the galaxy. But let's go back to DeepSNR. Now, if I'm just looking at this randomly, it's like those are stars, right? And when I looked at the background, something also happened that was similar. Like, look at this area in the original image. Let's look at DeepSNR. And DeepSNR resolves like this as almost a star or a blob. This as well, that as well. That in the original image, I think they're just noise. Or in this corner here, look at this and here. This is the original image. If I'm looking at it like that, I'm like, okay, there's nothing there, that's just noise. But let's look at DeepSNR. Nope, here's a star. There's a star as well here. There's faint, but they're there. And there's similar stories all over the image, which is not a big deal. But it's still something that kind of bothers me because it looks like DeepSNR might be deciding, okay, this is detail, this is noise. And it's trying to be smart about it, which is fine, but it reminds me of Topaz Denoise trying to do the same thing. And I don't know, I personally don't quite like that kind of approach. And there's a similar thing that happens in this image as well. So if we look around here, there can be, maybe there are stars, maybe there are not stars. It looks to me like it's just a bunch of noise, but DeepSNR, yeah, there are stars. Those dots are stars. So it's it almost feels like it's kind of doing a weird deconvolution at the same time as it's doing this kind of denoising. It feels like to achieve this level of denoising, it has to make guesses and keep going. Like, look here, I think this is all like nebula structure, and those two things might be stars, but I'm not sure. But if I look at DeepSNR, now they're definitely stars, and there's like this kind of line of stars or arc of stars that we get here that I honestly don't see at all in the original image. Like DeepSNR is telling me like, yeah, there's an arc of stars there, an asterism almost. It looks cool. Look at that. This arc of stars. Nope. Original image says no, but DeepSNR says, no, 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 there are stars here. And again, looking this time at M27, one of the examples that struck me was this little line there. This little line, which is to me just pure nebulosity. Let's look at what DeepSNR says. DeepSNR says, no, this is not pure nebulosity. These are two stars, not nebulosity. So let's look next to the cursor there, to the top left of the cursor. This is the original one, where it just looks like a line of nebulosity. This is DeepSNR, where it's now kind of like a binary star kind of thing. And all over the place, actually. Like in this area of noise there's just a few stars I can see in the original image. DeepSNR is confidently saying like, no, no, there's a lot of stars in there. I've resolved this noise into stars. Trust me, bro. And even there, this, I'm pretty sure, like besides star, 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 the rest looks like it's part of the nebulosity of M27. But DeepSNR kind of tells me like, oh no, these look like stars. And this is kind of like a small star cluster. I don't know. I'm uncomfortable with that. And I think the effect is even more visible in the background of M27. This is the original file. And this is DeepSNR. Look at the background. I mean, I can't even point out any specific spot because it's all over the place. In areas where I see only noise, DeepSNR sees stars. It's incredible. And not in a good way. Basically, it tells me how DeepSNR works. It works by basically blasting areas that it thinks are not interesting. And then what it thinks are stars or something, it will just like, yeah, that's good. Let's keep it. And it's not as like egregious as Topaz denoise, but it's still quite interesting in a way that I don't quite like. I mean, we're just here to make pretty pictures, right? So if we're here to make pretty picture, and you don't care that much about this level of accuracy of the details of your targets, then DeepSNR works great as long as one, you're using colored data, and two, you have to resample your drizzled data if you want to make use of DeepSNR. And ideally, you need to drizzle in the first place. So that's something to keep in mind. But if you're okay with those limitations, DeepSNR is excellent. But for me, I don't know, I spend hours under the stars to capture those targets. And I don't know, I want to be truthful to the data that I got from those targets. I don't want to have an AI tell me like, oh yeah, I think this noise is actually a star. Let me fix that for you. And Blur Exterminator is very good at just approximating a mathematical operation. And I'm perfectly fine with that because it's just a mathematical operation. What DeepSNR does is it makes judgment calls. In a way, it's a bit like Topaz denoise. Both of those systems, they make judgment calls and they add stuff where it doesn't seem to be, or as far as I can tell, sometimes replaces something that is nebulosity or part of a galaxy structure by something else. And I personally have a problem with that. In the grand scheme of things, the images that I process will likely be much better with DeepSNR. They will look cooler, but they will be less truthful to the data that I actually captured. And I don't like that. So I'm very conflicted about DeepSNR. And I did spend a lot of time, like many hours actually, getting this preparation for this video right. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, leave a comment, let me know what you think of DeepSNR. Have you tested it? Do you want to test it after watching this video? Because it does perform quite amazing results within limitations. And if you like this kind of video and you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing using that subscribe button. If you want to support the channel more and you're planning on buying equipment from Agena, Amazon, etc., using the links in the description will help me out at no cost to you. You can help more directly by joining my Patreon, link is down in the description, or joining the channel as a member using the join button next to that subscribe button. But again, I'm most interested in your comments. I was a bit really surprised by how DeepSNR took me on this roller coaster of emotions. But I hope this was an interesting video for you guys. Thank you so much for watching as always. Don't forget, whenever you can, to look up at the stars, and I'll see you next time.